And
All right. Good morning, everybody.
good morning.
Hello. So it is a nice sunny day, at least where I'm at. Where are you guys at? You got the sunshine out?
Yeah. It's nice and sunny in Colorado today.
Great.
They have the sun behind you there, Shah.
Well, I just want to remind you all there is a sunshine out there, but since I'm from Colorado, I know there's plenty of sunshine there too, but
Yeah.
I've also heard there might be some kind of mystery storm coming in.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, but you can't get a good answer on how much snow we're going to get. So
Where are you located, Greg?
I live in Littleton, which just, as you know, south suburbs of Denver. Denver area. Been here for about the last 18 years.
Well, I'm happy to say that I'm relocating back to Littleton.
Okay.
So, yeah, probably in May or June. So I'm going to be on the lookout for a great place. But Littleton is such a great little community and just has such a hometown feel.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it is. It's really nice. We enjoy living here. And I grew up in Colorado, but not in the Denver area. So I'm a native Coloradan. So, I always.
So usually I'm in Colorado, but I am in Phoenix here. So I know that Daniel just joined. He's out of Phoenix. I'm happy to be down here visiting family. But it's been a little cloudy, a little windy for the past few days. So and I don't know if that's typical, Daniel. Let us know. But I was hoping the sun would shine a little bit more. It was a great weekend though. I spent some time hiking and around the Scottsdale area, so it was beautiful.
Well, what's the temperature in Scottsdale? Because usually it's like standing in a hot air dryer.
Yeah, no, it was nice. It was nice. Yeah, Daniel said allergies. I've been that was when you kick up all the dust in the desert and that gets moving around. I mean, I've been suffering for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Where did you hike? Did you take a specific hiking trail?
Yeah, so I went up Tom's Thumb. It's called Tom's Thumb, which is a pretty neat little well-groomed, a nature conservatory, and is pretty nice. And it goes up to a rock that's a little spire, and then I wanted to go check it out because you can actually climb to the top of this rock from the backside, but I climbed up halfway and I was like, okay, well, probably best to have ropes. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll just bring more equipment next time.
Was it like you'd have to climb some rocks to get there, or?
Yeah, it's you have to climb. If you go to the back of it, you can climb up and get about halfway before you start getting some exposure, and it's a little bit of you can scramble up it without ropes, but it's about a class 5, and then up to get to the top there. But
well, I have to share you guys a funny story that happened to me this week, because me and my funny little stories. We've relocated to what we call the marina in Puerto Vallarta as snowbirds here, and we will be here another month and a half. And I decided, I'm tired. We were at some fancy little restaurant in the marina, and I thought, well, I'm tired. I think I'll just walk home and this kind of little resort area over here. And I thought, well, gosh, it seems like, I like to do a lot of golfing. I guess I could just take a shortcut through this golf course. Which, excuse me, golfers, I know that's not supposed to happen. Well, anyway, you guys will be golfers. You'll be pleased to know that I was in the middle of the golf course at 10 p.m. and there were snapping crocodiles.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like standing there in the dark, and I could hear splashing and crocodiles and. So I'm like booking it. I'm like out of there. I'm like, okay, that was stupid. Okay, golf owners, golf people, I will not be hanging out in golf courses at night in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
So
savage. They and they're pretty quick too. Like when they attack. Yeah. It's funny because in Australia, like many tourists just go missing because just ignore the signs, or they don't see the signs. And we have a lot of crocodile infested waters, and then they're like, oh, tourists, ended up in a crocodile infested water. I'm like, well,
and Jules, they don't put that on the brochures, right? They don't put it on the little tourist brochures. And it's funny because we go out to dinner at the marina, and we're sitting there, and there's these bright red signs that say, in Spanish, caution, crocodiles. But yeah, they're here, and I've heard that the tourists, little children, as well as dogs, Sally. So anyway, not to sound depressing, but I would say anywhere you go, there is, there's a few hazards you need to watch out for.
Well, it was some good night cardio. You got that in.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. If you guys can imagine that scene. And then, of course, because all the resorts look the same, and I couldn't speak Spanish very well, they were like, "Who are you? Why should we let you into our resort?"
Oh no!
No, I've just learned a lesson a lot about travel and not doing stupid things like that. But it's a great experience. I guess you could say I'm becoming more worldly. And then from a talent management perspective, you guys know me, I'm sharing this with my leaders because I'm trying to, say, watch out for the crocodiles, really pay attention to your business. And of course I have to turn it into a leadership opportunity.
Right. A good story, lots of lessons in there.
Right.
Yeah, I won't be networking, Greg, in one of those places.
Yeah.
But I would assume that you could probably say, even in the networking world, there's some crocodiles out there too.
Oh yeah. Yep, definitely.
So we're about to get started in about 3 more minutes, and so we're just chatting until then.
Okay.
And Greg, so you're in Littleton. Jules, where are you at?
I'm in LA.
Okay, LA, awesome.
Yeah, they're starting to open some things back. Apparently Disneyland is making its comeback, so it's all very exciting over here. Still no gym, but we'll have Disneyland apparently. So there's that.
But yeah, with everybody's masks on, right? But,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And Sam is in Durango, and he's just enjoying the fact that he can be so isolated. He doesn't even.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So right now, I am in Phoenix right now. So it's
oh, excuse me, Phoenix, but normally you're in Durango.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but a lot of my team right now is they're getting vaccinated. So they just had open shots this weekend. So one of my team members just got vaccinated. She was sick for 2 days. And then another is getting vaccinated today out in New York, and so hopefully he won't have too bad of effects. And then another one is getting ready to. So I heard the new technique though that was brought up to me by one of my team members is you gotta to prep before the vaccination, like in taking your zinc and all these things to get ready for the vaccination, and then I guess the symptoms are somewhat minimized. I mean, that was her theory. So hopefully that works out. I mean, it worked for a couple of her colleagues, so I have to see.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Several of my employees have also been getting vaccinated because of the industry that we do. So, but I will research that. I'll start Googling what the preparation is to prepare for that because it's worth it, but I guess you don't feel so well during the process.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we're just about to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get the presentation up. So we're all ready to go here at the top of the hour. And go from there. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring the share my screen. All right, so Jules, take us through this.
All right. right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for hopping on and joining us, whether you're coming on Zoom, LinkedIn, one of our other streaming platforms. Welcome. This is the People Strategies Forum. I see a couple of familiar names in our participants here, so welcome back. But if you're new, just to give you a bit of an idea about what the People Strategies Forum even is, it's a fantastic room. It's a mastermind of leaders dedicated to creating workplaces where people thrive, employers reward, and customers love. So today we have a very special guest. We're going to have a fabulous presentation on professional networking during a global pandemic. So hang tight for that. I'll give a little introduction to our speaker in just a moment. But our panel here, if you're not familiar, we have Shah here, who is a people strategist and HR consultant with Comp Team, but she is also a coach. So hang out till the end, because we do a little poll. We give you an opportunity to actually connect with all of us. So that's Shah, and we have Sam, who is the founder and CEO of Comp Team. He puts the People Strategy Forum together, and he's a global certified compensation consultant as well. And then a little bit about me. I'm Jules. I'm an on-camera coach and a video expert, so I help people show up confidently on camera. So I guess it kind of ties into what we're talking about today with Greg. And then, Sam, did you want to mention anything before I intro Greg?
Oh no, go ahead. Well, Smith is not able to join us today. He's in India dealing with some of his own adventures. So hopefully he'll be with us next week.
Fantastic. And I just also want to point out, if you have any questions at all, please put them in the chat. I will be kind of off camera fielding those questions and getting them answered for you. So please drop them in the chat. We want this to be really fun, really interactive. And if you are coming to us from LinkedIn or another platform, you can still drop in your questions and we'll make sure that those get answered after the session's finished. So let's get on to our fabulous speaker today. We have Greg Roche. I'm very excited about this because he is a total rewards expert. He is the author of a book called The Fast Guide to Networking for Introverts. And I loved reading in your bio, Greg, that you mentioned you'd rather go to the dentist than a networking event. And I thought that was very, very funny. And what I love about Greg is that what differentiates him is he teaches people to network differently. So without having to go to those networking events that can be really awkward, without cold calls, because they can be a little scary, and without the spammy emails, I should say, because that can be a little cringy, you know, those hey girl DMs that we get on Instagram. You know, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently here today. So Greg, do you want to just hold up your book so people can kind of get an idea of what it looks like? And we will drop the link for you. So if you're loving this session, we'll drop the link, The Fast and Easy Guide to Networking for Introverts. And Greg, if you're ready, I'll let you take the floor.
Sure. Thanks so much. Thanks, Sam, Jules, and Shar for having me here today. It's funny you just mentioned the dental thing, because I actually, right before this, went to the dentist this morning. So I was at the dentist getting my teeth cleaned, and I was thinking about that whole comment that I've made, that I would rather get dental work than go to the networking events. I just am an extreme introvert from the standpoint of being in a group of people I don't know is very sort of draining for me. I don't have any problem talking to people or having conversations or being on camera and presenting, but this idea of going there and just meeting people cold and having to find a person to talk to is something I just really, really don't like to do. I'll go ahead and you want me to share my screen and get going?
So while you go ahead and bring up that screen, so just a little bit about, I just wanted to mention how excited I was to find you, Greg, and have you on the forum. As being a fellow compensation practitioner, I mean, a lot of people in our field are very introverted. We're data geeks, right? We like to work with numbers and do those analyses. And we're often buried in our spreadsheets, right? So I thought it was wonderful to find a practitioner that has looked into this issue of networking and trying to connect with people. And I just thought that was you definitely fit the bill. So I'm so glad to have you here. But before we jump into your presentation, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how did you, as you started out in your career and you were going through your career, how did you come about the realization that networking is important? Because I got to tell you, I've been working with some of professionals in the compensation or total rewards area or in HR that have never thought about networking until they need to find a job, and then they're often at a quite a disadvantage. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey there?
Yeah, definitely. And before I get into that, though, I want to plant a question with our audience to kind of get you thinking about this. And my question is, and this is something I always ask people, when you hear the term professional networking, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And you can either put that in the chat or you can just think about it. We'll get to that in a second, but I really just want to see kind of what you come up with there. And while you're thinking about that, to answer Sam's question, the reality of why I got into this was I got laid off. In 2012, my boss walked into my office one day and said, "I'm eliminating your position. I'm restructuring the department and your position's been eliminated." And I'd been there for almost 10 years. And in those 10 years, I had never thought about networking. Again, as an introvert, it wasn't something that I really wanted to do, to be a part of. And all of a sudden, I had to go find a new job. And I thought you just apply and you put your resume out there. And of course, like we all know, if you're going to just dump your resume into an ATS or apply to jobs online, you're probably not going to get anywhere. And through that process, I learned how to network with people, find some people to help me. And the happy ending of the story is I landed a job. And it took me about 3 months, which wasn't too bad in terms of job search. But I did find a new job. But when I found that new job, I made a promise to myself that I'd never be in that position again. I would never be unnetworked, so to speak. And as I went through the next few years, I worked on connecting with people and staying connected, and opportunities started to find me with other roles. And I got some different jobs, and I kept going through the process of keeping the network alive and keeping the network going. And then when I got to a point where I had moved a couple times, I had started teaching other people about this and showing them what I do. People said, "Well, would you coach me on this?" So I started doing some coaching with some executives who were in transition, who were looking for their next opportunity. I started to run some group coaching programs. And during all of this was all on the side, right? I still have the day job. I'm a compensation and benefits person, leader. Sometimes I do both. Sometimes I do one or the other. Right now, I'm running a compensation department for a Fortune 7 healthcare company, and I have a great team, have a great situation there. But on the side, I'm still doing a lot of this networking work. And it's something that I never really intended to write this book. Last year, when it was about this time last year, I was kind of noodling over it, thinking about it. And I never could really figure out, how am I going to write a book about networking? I mean, that sounds like probably one of the most boring books in the world. But I did hit upon a way that I could do this and make it come alive for me, at least as the writer. And it just is another way for me to get my ideas about networking out into the world and to share it with people, because I think there's a lot of people who are getting information about networking that may not fit their style. It may not be for them. A lot of if you Google professional networking, you're going to get a lot of articles about elevator pitches and your value proposition and all those kind of things. And again, if you're an introvert, that's not what you want to do. And in this last year, as I was writing the book, the world changed. So we went from having actual networking events and conferences and things where we could meet a lot of people to having to do things online or not at all. I think a lot of the ideas I have will help people, whether you're introvert or extrovert, with that new world we have where there aren't a lot of opportunities to go into a room and meet new people. So I think it's worked out so that, again, it's not just for introverts anymore, and it's something that anybody can use and should be using all the time, not just when you need it
So if I may interject here, I just want to say what a real short snippet of my experience in this area. Now, I am an extrovert, and everybody that would know me would probably tell you that. Although I was also one when I was happy in my little corporate jobs for 20 plus years, and I'm not going to say how many of the pluses are, but I did not take the time to network or even build up my LinkedIn or do any of those things. And so also when I was in 2016, one of the victims of being exited from my organization, although I had a little cushion with a 6-month severance, I ended up ultimately having to educate myself, even as an extrovert, how to network, which ultimately is what built my new business, which took a good 6 years to build, and it's been doing very well right now. But if had it not been for the networking and retooling and myself and my business partner and my fiance, retooling our skill sets and our abilities to network, there's no way we would have been able to build the company that we built today. And it took a lot of, even for I know the two of you talk about introversion. It also is the extroverts, because both my fiance and I are very outgoing people, but we were doing it all wrong. We were doing it all wonky and just walking around and walking into networking sessions and really not knowing the purpose of exactly what we were trying to build. So knowing what you're about to share with us would have been, so helpful. And I have to be very candid with everybody as an actual, HR person. I'm sorry to let you know this. Your job will probably change in the next 6 months, 1 year, 5 years.
Yeah.
So learning this now, even if you're gainfully employed, please take the time to hear what Greg is saying, because it will change, and particularly during these times, and I'm a living proof of that.
Yep.
Yeah,
So thank you, Greg.
Yeah, the world has changed since in this pandemic. So Greg, tell us a little bit about how networking is different now. I mean, what should we should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think so. Let's come back to the question that I originally asked, and whether you put it in the chat or not. Some of the things I hear when people say that, and I switched my slides up, so I was having an issue with the slideshow, so I just went to this view. Is this okay for everybody? You're tracking?
Yep.
Okay, so usually people say, when I ask them what they think of professional networking, it's meeting people, making connections, and then they say, well, it's exchanging business cards or finding a job. But a lot of people say it's awkward, or it kind of feels salesy and sleazy a little bit. So I think a lot of people have these views of it. And the reason why, I'll go back. I don't think anybody would ever say networking is not important, right? No matter who you talk to, whether you're running a business or you have a career, it's important to network, because we all know you're going to have to work with other people. Even if you're a solopreneur, you're just running your own business, you are going to have professional relationships in order to run that. And, I think when I define networking, and that's what I talk about a lot, is networking to me is creating professional relationships with people you know and trust for mutual benefit. And I think that definition is important, because we're talking about professional relationships here. We're not talking about the people you're going to hang out with on the weekends. But again, those kind of relationships are almost more difficult to form than again, your close friends, because you may see them infrequently, but you still want to stay connected with them. You want to be able to know and trust them with, just a few interactions. And then you want to make this about how can you help them and how can they help you. So again, it's not a one-way street. And I think when you think about it like this, it gets you past that sort of idea of this is a sales transaction, or this is a transactional relationship. It's more about an actual professional relationship. So, it's also something you have to practice. It's a skill, and it takes practice. You can't just sit down in my webinar or read my book or anything and know everything you're going to need to know about networking. I can give you ideas of what to do, but you have to go out and do them. And so I say that about my book. My book is very short. You could read it in probably an afternoon if you wanted to. It's only about 100 pages, but that was intentional because I wanted to write something that people would take and then go take action. I didn't want you to spend days reading through it. I wanted you to get it, get the ideas, and then get out and start networking. So I think back to your question, I always think about the worst time to network is when you need to find a job. That's the worst time you can try to network. Right. And so as Shar was saying, it's very important that you're doing this all the time because things will change. And it's hard because everybody else in the world thinks that if you come and say, hey, I want to network with you, that you're coming to them because you need a job. And actually some of my students that I've coached have said, I'll approach people and they're like, okay, well, what do you want? See, the whole world thinks of networking in the wrong way. They think of it again as this transactional thing where you're coming to take something from them, as opposed to, again, this professional relationship that we're going to build to help each other. And so I tell people, if you run into that, there's 3 reasons why you should network, even if you're not looking for a job. And the 3 reasons are knowledge, talent, and what I call career insurance. And so the first 2 are a little more obvious, and I'll get into what the third one is. But knowledge is something that a lot of us have and a lot of us share. But if I take, for example, myself in the total reward space, I network with other people who are compensation or benefits professionals, and I build relationships because I want to be able to ask them, how are you solving this problem? They've probably already addressed it or solved it, or maybe I've addressed it and solved it and they want to ask me. But if I just go out to somebody on LinkedIn and I find out they're a compensation professional and I send them a message saying, hey, I'm struggling with this, how did you fix this? They're probably not going to respond. I sound like I might be a vendor, or I might be somebody who's trying to get competitive information from them. They're not going to share their knowledge with me. But if I've worked to build a professional relationship with them, if they know me and they trust me, they're going to be a lot more willing to collaborate with me. And so it's a good way to, again, tap into knowledge that you may not be able to get, or to get, really specific dialogue going, and also almost build these sort of, communities of knowledge and trust where you can share information between you. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason is talent pipelines. And this happened to me a few years ago, where I had just started a new job, and a HR leader for a hospitality company here in Denver invited me to coffee. And she said, I've heard you're somebody I should talk to. And we were talking, and she said, our company has a talent imperative. And I thought, that's a weird term. I've never heard that before. So I pushed her a little bit on that and said, well, what does that mean? She said, all of our executives have been told to go out and find talent in our area that could one day join the company. And she said, I don't have an open position and I'm not recruiting you. I'm not asking you to come work for me. I'm just sitting down to get to know you, to see if you're somebody that I can put in my talent pipeline. So this organization was basically, we talk about talent pipelines internally and finding succession planning and things like that. But this was a company that was actually trying to identify top talent in the area in advance, so that when a position opened, they could add those people to your team. So again, if you lead a team or a department, if you could have your short list of people that you would reach out to, and they may or may not be available, but think about how much easier your talent acquisition process, your recruiting team would love you if you could give them the list of, like, these are my 3 people, go call them. These are the people I want to hire. Now, they're still going to go through the interview process. They're still going to go through all the application. They're going to follow all the steps, but at least it gets you to a point where you already know and trust those people and want to bring them into your organization.
Right. I think that's a great point, Greg. I mean, because when we think about this, even in a business context, I mean, there's sometimes when we identify key talent out in the industry around us, they may not be ready to make that transition to a new role, but having that relationship with them, you'll be top of mind when they are ready, right?
Yep.
And so there may be need to be flexible in both directions on when you might bring a person on board, but if you're really into obtaining the best talent for your company, that's an excellent way to do it.
Well, I also just want to interject. We are living proof of the biggest challenge of reopening during the COVID reopening process. And we have about 20 employees, and we're, well, let's say several weeks ago, we were more at, 16 employees, and we are opening a new location. We hired a professional recruiter who's phenomenal. He's one of our former speakers. His name's Monty George, by the way. And even he was saying that there was such a shortage of talent that wanted to move into public facing positions such as what we have. So not only was it restricting the ability for us to open our new location to get the right talent in place, then we realized that we needed that talent pool and that talent pipeline, because a lot of employees are currently working for corporate organizations that are expecting layoffs and are expecting changes in the design of their organizations, and are looking for an opportunity such as ours that can pay just as well and provide just as good benefits, but they're not quite ready to jump ship, so to speak.
And I think it's a good point to what Greg is saying, is that, we're in an age where we all just need to be more agile and be prepared for change. Right? So
Yeah, and a lot of it is the relationships. I would like each of my 6 leaders to have that pipeline and those relationships and that leadership the talent pipeline, not to steal people away from the current organization, but to be welcoming the new talent coming on board, because we are a different employer than even their current employer would ever see. So it truly takes strategy, because the talent pipeline is not going to happen this month. I mean, we're talking 3 months, 4 months from now. These are the talent that we bring on board at that point. And so, and it's great that we know them by name, and we know where they work, and we know their talents and their skill sets, and we know them and care about them long before they start working with us.
Yep. Yeah, it really takes a long view of it. So you got to play the long game in this talent piece and establish those relationships. Because again, if you're approaching somebody else for a job and they don't know you, they're like, okay, great, I'm flattered. Everybody likes to be asked. But if they don't know you, they're like, I'm not sure, do I want to work for that person? Am I ready to make that move? Again, if you develop that relationship in advance, then it makes it a whole lot more comfortable for them when they are ready to make that move.
Well, one thing, Greg, I think, and Sam, I think both of you are starting to see this. A big trend that's happening right now is that we're getting ghosted. So I would say this could go for particularly any service industry or any facing the public industry. We are getting to know candidates, and they're doing the interview process, and they're going through the whole phase with us. And then all of a sudden they're gone. They block us, they stop texting, they don't show up for interviews. I think it'll avoid the ghosting problem, acquiring talent, if you could build those relationships way in advance. And then the person would be at least courteous to say, you know what, I've changed my mind. I'm really not quite interested in this opportunity, but I didn't want to quote ghost you, kind of like dating, and blow you off. I wanted to be upfront with you and tell you that I made a different direction.
Good point.
Yeah. So the last reason that I would tell people why you should be networking all the time, or networking even if you don't need a job, is what I call career insurance. And we insure everything we have. We insure our homes, our cars, our health, our lives. We can get an insurance policy for all of those things, but we can't buy an insurance policy for our careers. And your professional network becomes your career insurance policy. And what I mean by that is, it's what's going to help you find the next opportunity and find it more quickly. So I told you about my story when I lost my job the first time, and it took me 3 months because I didn't really have a network. And then I told you how I went through being employed and having a number of other jobs. And before the role I'm in now, I was working for a different company here in Denver, and it was a private equity owned company, and they had switched owners midway through the year, and then the new owner was coming in, and I could tell there were changes coming. You could just sense that there was going to be some changes. And in, you know, a short period of time, they came in and said, hey, this middle layer of people, we are going to need to take out that middle layer of people. Well, guess who was in the middle layer of people? I was. So for my second time that my position was eliminated, I was already networked and had already been talking to my network, who were people, again, that already knew me. We had stayed in touch. We talked about what we were working on, and I already knew about some opportunities that were potentially out there. These were, again, somebody who was kind of talent pipelining me, but because we had kept that relationship. And so I went from a 3-month job search the first time to a 3-week job search the second time. It only took me 3 weeks from the time I left my old employer to the time I started with my new employer. And in job search terms, that's really fast. But again, that's because I cut down all the time of them getting to know me and wondering if I was the right person. They already knew. So then it was more just procedural to get me through all the process so that they could give me an offer and get me hired. And this is, people will sit there and say, well, but my job is great, right? And I would say that right now, the job I'm in right now, my role is great, my team is great, my boss is great, the organization's great. It's not at risk of going away. And at the same time, you could have your boss get a new job and move on to something new. Your company could get purchased. That happens all the time. Or you could have a global pandemic where entire industries shut down overnight. I mean, it was this week, last year, this coming up on this Friday will be the day to a year that I left my office, and I've only been back once or twice to get some stuff. I've been at home for the entire year. I mean, entire industries disappeared literally overnight last year. Right. And if that was your industry and you hadn't already had your network going, you were starting from scratch. Who knows what could happen? So that's why you need this career insurance and this idea that you already have these relationships through your network that you can start to activate those and start to move forward in your career instead of just starting from zero.
That's a great point, Greg. And we just think about it. I mean, if you waited, I mean, and this global event happens, I mean, everybody else is in the same boat as you are, and so the whole channel is getting clogged with people trying to clamor for work or develop these networks. I mean, you need to really do this ahead of time, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the hard thing, because we get in our jobs and we feel like I'm great, I'm set. I hate that job search thing and I'm glad I'm past it. So I'm just going to like take a break from it. And this isn't job searching, right? Remember, this is just continuing to maintain professional relationships. And
well,
yeah,
I just have to say this before you jump to your next slide, because this has actually happened to me twice in my career. Mm-hmm. You know, I was one of those that, you know, did the traditional, got my undergrad degree, mm-hmm. got my graduate, got my master's degree, worked my way up the ladder, was sitting at the corporate table, sitting with the executive team. Yeah, I have actually been let go twice. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not something I'm proud to say, but today I really don't care, because right now I'm happily, gainfully employed with my own company and working with my partners such as CompTeam. But I have to tell you, I was also one of those that just leaned back, even in 2016, and just, you know, I had a LinkedIn profile. Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe I talked to a couple of people that called me, you know, and wanted to get to know who Char Miller was. But I have to tell you, looking back, I was so lackadaisical, and I really wasn't paying attention to the fact that I needed to be working on my resume, which, by the way, as you said earlier, just goes into some kind of portal mm-hmm. and never gets seen. And also just making sure that I start networking. Mm-hmm. And it is extremely devastating, because I also do career coaching mm-hmm. on the side. I actually talk to a lot of my career coaching. I call it HR with a heart, by the way. I talk to a lot of my career coaching clients, and they are devastated. I've actually had career coaching clients the day that they've been laid off or let go, or whatever phrase they want to call it, reoperationalized or whatever word. And they are just extremely lost because they have not built a career insurance, as you put it, program for themselves. And so what I've said to all my friends, my family, my clients, and even my employees is you need to build your own career. And I like your word, I'm going to use that, your career insurance process. So, because even my company may close down, and I'm not going to guarantee to my employees that it's going to last forever, because I might get a call tomorrow and we might be shut down. So I want each of my employees to have this type of thing put in place. You know, God forbid something happens tomorrow, which now we've learned in this day and age is going to happen.
Yeah. For reasons completely out of anybody's control, right? I mean,
right?
This isn't like your company, you know, you made the wrong deal or something happened and you had to shut down. This is just the whole world changed in a matter of weeks last year. And
right, which is part of our values as a company. I believe in what I call compassion, dignity, and respect. And we are so transparent to default that we tell our employees every single thing that's happening day to day, that ultimately our company can be shut down tomorrow.
Yep.
So please have your plan in place. And I would say to any employer out there, help your employees have a plan in place, because even if you are a 1,500 employee company, your company can change tomorrow. So what's the most compassionate thing to do is to give them career assurance so that they can be prepared if their job goes away tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I generally come at this from the employee's angle, right? Helping employees do this for themselves. But even from an employer's standpoint, it's something we probably struggle with a little bit as employers, because you're saying like, hey, make sure you have a network so that you can like find another job if something happens. And then you think, oh, what if they just leave? But you should ask yourself, if I'm worried about them leaving, you should ask yourself why. Why would they? Am I doing something as an employer that would make them want to leave? That's probably a whole nother topic for a whole nother session, right?
Well, we probably could do a whole another session on this topic, but I will tell you that I have learned, and you can tell I'm very compassionate about this whole issue, is many employers don't care if their employees lose their job tomorrow, even if it's an operational change. And I'm a former HR person, so I don't care if other HR people don't like what I'm saying. But we need to be more compassionate that the fact our businesses will change on a dime. And we should focus on helping our employees be prepared for the changes. Obviously, we just went through an epidemic, and we should all understand that that can happen.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into some of the things you can do, right, to create this career insurance policy. And these are my top 5 tips that I generally give to people that I talk about in my book, and go into a little more detail. And some of these will seem a little bit, whether they're either counterintuitive or obvious, as I explain this information to people. And I was doing this the other night with some colleagues of mine. We were out to dinner, and they said, well, give us the really quick version of your book, right? And so I went sort of through this, and they're like, yeah, those are really, like, they sound kind of obvious, but they're things people don't do, right? So it's kind of a reminder of things you need to be doing as you're trying to build your network. And again, none of these require you to go to any networking events or conferences. You can do these all the time. You could do any of these any day of the week in a very short amount of time. It doesn't take a lot of time to do these. And so my top 5 tips, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on these, are start with who you know. You can connect online, but you're really going to build relationships offline. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means these days. Come at this with a giving mindset and be easy to help, and then make this a habit. Again, do this every day, do this frequently, keep it going, and don't just make it a one-time thing that you're gonna do it and then forget about it. So let's start with the first one, which is start with who you know. And this is one that people go, well, if I start with who I know, they're already in my network. Why would I talk to them? That seems like I'm not growing my network. And I get that. But think about all the people you already know in your life. How did you meet them? You probably met them from somebody that you both know. You were probably introduced to them, or you were in geographical or physical proximity to this person. And in our careers, that means you probably worked with them. So you know people from work, you know people, your neighbors, you know people from organizations you're in, but most likely it's through a common organization you were in, or it's somebody who has introduced you. So when I say start with who you know, it actually goes back to Adam Grant, who's a professor at Wharton, who's written a number of books. He's got a new one coming out, but he's written Give and Take and originals. And in Give and Take, in the second chapter, there's a concept that he introduces called dormant ties. And he didn't actually come up with that. It was part of an MIT Sloan School of Management study they did, where they had executives go back through their contact list. So back in the day, they were looking through their Rolodex, if you're old enough to know what a Rolodex was. And they went back to people they hadn't not talked to in a couple years. And they reached out to these people, and they found that the people that they hadn't talked to in a couple years actually came back and were more willing to help them and provide advice to them than people that they even had been working with, on a day-to-day basis. And so it kind of came up with this concept of, you have a lot of people that you have worked with, whether in business or in your job, that have moved on and you've lost touch with. But you can easily reconnect with those people and start the relationship. They already know who you are. They know what you do. Those barriers of knowing and trusting somebody are a lot lower. And you could reach out, start the conversation, and really just start talking to them about what they're working on and what you're working on. And I think, again, people don't think about this, and they don't think that if I've been in a job for 5, 10, 15 years, think of all the people who have come through that organization and moved on to other jobs. Think of all those people who work in other places. If you just went through and found that list of people that you would be interested in connecting with, you could probably find a good 10 to 20 people to reconnect with. And that is a really good start to building your network, right? If you could just start having those conversations. And I tell people sometimes just go into LinkedIn and you can do a search for past companies. So you're looking for your first or second degree connections that worked at the same company you worked at, and bring those up and go through that and be like, I remember this person, this person, this person. You'd be surprised what people you've forgotten, but when you see them on the search results, you'll say, oh yeah, I remember them. I wonder what they're up to. So going through that is a good way to reconnect with people. And once you've reconnected, and you may do that through LinkedIn, or you may do that through email, however you can connect them, it's okay to start the relationship, right? To say, hey, I was thinking about you the other day. I was wondering what you've been up to. It's as easy as that. Like, this doesn't have to be a long email like that you'll read online. Hey, here's the perfect introductory email to send through LinkedIn. This is just a really simple conversation opener that's like, hey, how have you been? What have you been up to? We've kind of lost touch. And some people will take some time to respond, and some people won't respond, but you'd be surprised. A lot of these people, it's funny, they'll say, oh yeah, I was thinking about you the other day. It's amazing how that happens, right? But that starts the conversation. But then you want to really move to the idea that, pre-pandemic, you get together and have coffee or lunch, but even now, you want to have a voice-to-voice or a face-to-face on the screen conversation with somebody, so that you can actually have a human conversation about what people are working on. So that's really that. When I say offline these days, I mean, offline from the sense it's not a written communication that you're trading back and forth, because you can't really get into the nuances of are you struggling with anything? Have you had challenge? What's going on with your life? So building that relationship, and people will often say, yeah, but what are we going to talk about? And they overthink this. They try to come up with templates of what to talk about. And I always just say, just ask them what they're working on. Ask them what they're doing. And you, as the initiator, which your job is to listen. Your job is not to sit there and tell them what you need or what you want. Your job is to listen. Listen for what they're working on. Listen for what challenges they have. And as you're listening, think about how you might be able to help them, right? Don't come into this with like, oh, I need to ask them to introduce me. Come into this and think about how you can help. And I think when you do it from that, it takes a lot of the pressure off. It takes a lot of the pressure off of you. It takes the pressure off of feeling like this is again, transactional, that it's some sort of, sales relationship, that it's more of a professional relationship. We're just trying to reconnect and kind of restart that relationship. Once you've done that, as you listen to people, come in this with a giving mindset. Like I said, you're listening for things that you could help the person out with. And when I say help, I'm not telling you you have to help them find a job. You don't have to help them find a new piece of business. This can be advice. Did you read a book that this person might be interested in? Do you have a person you could introduce them to when they talk that you say, oh, I know somebody who's really good at that, I can introduce you? Do you have any other sort of recommendation or idea of what this person could do? And you're giving this to them first, right? You're not, there's no conditions, there's no I'm expecting, you know, them to do anything for me. You're just coming into this with a giving mindset. And this is, to me, this is a really important key, because this is one of the reasons why people don't network. They feel like they're going to take advantage of somebody, and they feel like because of that, they don't want to be that person, so they don't even do it. But if you can get to the point where you're thinking, I'm going to make connections out in the world, I'm going to work on building relationships, and I'm going to figure out what I can give to the people that I connect with, why would you not want to do that? Right? I mean, it does take time and it's effort, but why would you not want to help other people out? I think we all want to help people that we know. So if you can't think of anything to give, because people are like, oh, I just don't know, they get a block, they're overthinking this. I say, you have something, everybody has the same thing they can give, and that's their attention. Give the person your attention. If you're sitting there talking to somebody and they're listening, and you can tell that you have their attention, what does that make you think of that person? It makes you want to be around them. It makes you like them. I mean, it makes you want to have more conversations. So if you give people your attention, they're going to, number one, want to talk to you more, continue the relationship. And then they're going to turn around and they're going to say, wow, you've like given me a lot, or I love these conversations. What can I do to help you? Okay. And so now we're to the point where they're going to ask to help you. You're not even going to ask them for anything. I mean, you are, but you're not going to have to say, hey, I need something from you. They're going to say, how can I help you? And this is the other thing that you really have to kind of plan and think about, is you've got to be easy to help. We all want to help people, but if it's hard to help them, we're going to find reasons why we can't do it. So back to Shar, your conversation about the resume. A lot of people think when you get in this situation, you say, oh, here's my resume, could you pass it to somebody? And that is a very hard thing for somebody to do, even if you have a relationship. It is hard because you have to take that resume. Now you got to find the position that they'd be good for if they're looking for a job. Then you've got to go find the recruiter who's working on it, which isn't always easy. And then you've got to tell this recruiter, hey, I've got this resume from this person that you've never met that I know, and I think they're great, but you're going to still have to call them and assess that. And you're going to put that on their desk or in their email, and it's probably going to sit there. I've had people give me theirs and it sat on my desk, I'll admit. And I'm always like, I got to take that down to recruiting. I got to take that down to recruiting. And it just gets buried. And then I didn't help that person. So doing something like that makes you hard to help. Something that's way easier to give to somebody so that they can help you is your list of target companies or industries or people that you want to be introduced to. So, and I always tell people this has to be an actual physical list. Back in the day, again, when we were having coffee, which hopefully we'll be doing again, I would tell people, I want you to print this list out on a physical piece of paper and make it look nice. Like not just I typed out some text and printed it out, but format it almost like your resume that says companies I'm interested in, and then list the companies, or industries I'm interested in, or people I would like to meet, types of people I would like to meet. And the reason why it's got to be a physical list is twofold. Number one, if people can look at it, they're going to process. You've given them a prompt, a way to start accessing things that are in their mind so that they can say, if I were to say, you tell me who you know, well, where do you want me to start? But if you say, tell me who you know that works at any of these companies, I might go, oh, I know one person at one of these companies. I could introduce you to them. Or you might say, hey, I noticed all these companies are in a certain industry. You forgot XYZ company. And by the way, I know somebody there. Great. Could you introduce me there? But you got to give people a place to start so that they can easily access that mental database they have. And
So,
go ahead.
so I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're on such a roll and it's so great. When I first was let go of my last job in 2016 and I had to reinvent myself, I met a wonderful executive recruiter who I couldn't believe that he was sitting down with me in a coffee shop because he was actually very tight with the guy that let me go. It was kind of like odd, but but anyway, he sent me home with literally homework. When I say that he gave me a gift, he taught me how to go into LinkedIn and do research on the companies that I want to work for and target those organizations, and literally taught me the tools to identify the key contacts to start networking with, and do it in such a way that it wasn't like begging or needy, or he taught me how to go to the social at the time before COVID, the social networking opportunities to meet those people face to face. And he gave me the gift, and there was no reason for him to do that. Today, I'm so thankful for him because ultimately it helped lead to me building a business. The other tip I want to say is, I'm going to pull it up on my phone here. Has anybody seen these?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, every time you go to a restaurant, there are now business cards that you can order with these things on them and you can have one little business card that you can stick in your wallet, and essentially it's on the back of your business card, because people hate business cards. They hate them.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to advertise the company name, but you can essentially get one of these. That's your business card. And when you're, meet someone at a coffee shop or a cocktail bar or whatever, you meet them at restaurant, or golfing, being eaten by crocodiles, you can actually just flash this little thing on their phone, and your contact will be saved on their phone, and they don't need to carry around a business card.
Yep.
So today there's all kinds of technologies like this to help you. When you said, there were 2 points you made. One, give them a gift. So ultimately I learned from a gentleman that gave me a gift. And then 2, how to make it easy to help you.
Yeah.
That particular tool right there makes it easy for people to remember you. The last thing I'll say, because I don't want to take up your presentation. I happened to be on a beach across way over there, and I met some fabulous HR IT expert guy that ultimately I wanted to introduce Sam, because Sam and I are partners through networking, by the way. And but unfortunately he was like feeling around, I don't have my business card, I don't have my contact, and I didn't have my cell phone because I was trying to be on quote vacation. But had I had something like this to flash, I would have had his contact. I can't remember his name right now. But I could have said to my partner, hey, could you take a quick little flash of his little barcode-y thing?
Yeah.
I would have had his information linked up to his LinkedIn and been able to connect him to Sam in a heartbeat.
Yep.
So the point is there are all kinds of new technologies out there right now that you are actually practicing in restaurants and everything that we can use in our job search.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for the target company list, and again, it may not be companies. And again, even if it's not companies, it may just be industry experts or people, right? Because you're trying to trade knowledge or you're trying to locate that talent. I like the idea of, and you could do it with email, you could email people the list, but I like the people to have the list because there's something about looking at it and taking it that it absorbs, goes into your brain. And then what we do is we take advantage of what's called our recency biases. And so our brains access the information that's most recent. And if you've just looked at a list of companies, as you go through the day, the strange thing is going to happen where you're going to start seeing those companies either in social media or in news stories. They're going to pop up. Your brain is going to latch onto those and say, I just saw that company's name. oh, I just saw a job post for that. Oh, Greg was looking at that company. I should tell Greg about this, right? You basically create what I call opportunity scouts out in the world who know what you're looking for, and when they see it, they connect you with those opportunities. And it's
So are you suggesting that we have like a paper list that we I mean, how would we carry this list around?
Well, it can either be paper or emailed, right? And like I said, when I was doing this, when we were meeting in coffee shops, when we do this, I would always make people write it down. Because that means you have to commit to actually doing it. You can also give it to them and they can take it with them, and they may throw it away, but again, they've got something that will get in their head. It's like when you buy a new car, you suddenly see that car everywhere in the world. You may not have seen it before, but once you buy a car, you're going to see your car everywhere because that information is more readily available in your brains. So if it was emailed, that's fine too. No issue there. But again, I think I try to get people to do the actual list just because it's easier to give people that than to give them your resume. They don't have to walk away with your resume and then worry about that. But they might walk away and say, ooh, I heard about an opportunity here. I need to connect you with that opportunity. And to me, that's a lot easier to do than try to take your resume and find somebody to give it to. If I take your resume, I feel like
my challenge is that I meet people all the time and they rattle off all these companies. And by the time I get home, I completely forget.
Yeah, I mean, may not be practical in the sense of like you just meet somebody and they give you a list like that. But again, this was an example of how I tell people, think about the easiest thing somebody can do for you. And that's to introduce you or make the connection. It's not to go find the person you need to talk to about getting the job.
You're right.
Sorry guys, I'm just gonna jump in real quick just to let you know we're at the top of the we've got about 10 minutes left. So if anyone who is on the Zoom wants to drop in any last minute questions so we can get those answered for you, I am gonna post the link again to Greg's website. That's the best place to go to get his book. I'm loving this, by the way. I've just been like scribbling notes this whole time. This has been really awesome. So yeah, just to remind everyone, drop the any questions you have for Greg in the chat.
Yep. So the last thing I do, you can kind of guess, you can see that the first four things create a bit of a process or a cycle, right? You're going to start with who you know, you're going to reach out and reconnect, you're going to find out what they're working on, see what you can give to them. And then when they say, how can I help? You're going to ask them to introduce you to somebody or connect you with somebody. And then you're going to start all over, right? You're going to get introduced, you're going to go through the whole process. And it sounds very one-to-one, but this is actually how the network grows. This is how your network gets bigger, how you meet more people. You can go to an event, or we used to be able to go to events, and you can meet 10 people that you trade business cards with or trade information with, but how many of those 10 are you actually going to probably connect with or follow up with? Probably not more than one or two. So while it does seem very one-to-one, these are actual relationships that you're going for the quality of the relationship instead of the quantity of the number of people that you're going to meet. Again, it also helps more if you don't like meeting a lot of people all at once, if you prefer to have one-to-one interactions. But when you get to the end, you need to make this a habit. This is something that has to happen every day. I mean, yeah, literally, do I connect with somebody new every day? No, but I try to connect, or I try to follow up, or I try to have a conversation with somebody, I try to think of a way I can help somebody or a way somebody can help me. I try to do some of this every single day. It takes time because you might send an email and they don't respond for 3 weeks. So, okay, then when they respond, you move on. So you've got a lot of these different processes going with different people all the time. But my point is, you can't just sit down one weekend and go, I'm going to blast out 100 messages to people that I've talked to, and that's going to be my networking. It's not going to work like that. You can't sustain that. You're not going to be able to continue to do it all the time. So you've got to find a way to make this a habit. And for me, I come from the approach and have gotten, coached and trained in the tiny habits method, which is BJ Fogg, who's a Stanford professor. He just has a book out this last year called Tiny Habits. And it's how to make behavior change attainable through making it smaller. And I try to think of what's the smallest thing I can do in this process every day. and how do I make it smaller, and how do I remove all the barriers, and then again just kind of continue to do this. And what ends up happening when people start out, it takes a little time to get traction with connecting with people, but before they know it, they've got more calls than they can handle. They've got more people to follow up with. And the good thing about this is if you ever get overwhelmed, you can always dial it back. You can slow it down. You're in control of how fast some of this stuff moves. But if you don't keep doing it, you're going to be starting over. If you don't take care of the garden, if you plant all the seeds and you don't, spend time watering it, taking care of it, and weeding and stuff like that, it's not gonna bear the fruit that you want it to bear. So those are my top 5 things that I would say when people are looking to network, and I lay those out in my book. I talk a lot about students I've had and their experiences and their stories and how this has worked for them, and give a little bit more detail on all these steps. So if you're interested, like I said, it's a very quick read, only about 100 pages. I wove in, what I did is I used different fables from Aesop to kind of create the concepts in each chapter. So each one starts with a fable, and then I kind of weave those concepts throughout the stories from my students and the concepts that I'm trying to. So I hope that it's an interesting, quick read that people can get the ideas, and then they can get out there and start connecting with people.
That's great. I like that, Greg. So
Absolutely.
yeah, as we reach the top of the hour here, I just want to take a moment before we take the rest of our questions and introduce our next speaker. So Jules, would you tell them a little bit about our next topic here?
Yeah, for sure. So next week, we're going to be having Beth Smith, and she's going to be presenting Why Can't I Hire Good People? So same time next week, hopefully we'll catch you on the next session. And again, if anyone has any last minute questions for Greg, please drop them in the chat. And if you are on any of the other streaming platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, be sure to put in those questions as well, because we will get those answered for you a little later as well.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to Beth's discussion next week. I mean, she's a lot of fun. She carries a great deal of energy with her, and she's got a lot of experience and stories of hiring people. And she's a former business owner herself. I think she had a very successful restaurant in the Boulder area, and I ran into several hiring issues that really developed a new passion of what she's doing now. So super excited to hear about that next week and be a part of that discussion.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Greg. You've been just phenomenal, and I can't wait to check your book out. So
Yeah,
thank you
great.
so much. I resonate so much with many things. I've got so many stories. I could resonate with that. So thank you so much for joining us today. You're just a delight.
Yeah,
Thanks, Greg.
Enjoy being here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for humanizing the networking process, because just those tips, because it's so awkward for a lot. I'm an extrovert, and I sometimes feel really cringe, like, do I, So humanizing it, it's far less anxiety inducing. So thank you for that. And going in with a giving mindset, because I've noticed that myself, because I had to pivot last year during COVID myself, when the film and TV industry shut down. And I just found a lot of people would be like, the me approach, like, how can you help me? And it's like, okay, I'm going to endeavor to never be like that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important. We need to spread that word around, and just change it up and make it feel a little less awkward and cringy.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks, Jules. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and a special thanks to Greg, and thanks and enjoyed the discussion. And so
get the book.
The book, that's right. Let's
and happy March. Happy March.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, bye.
Thanks.
See you next week.
See you.